And rolling.
So this is the writer here. What?
Tell us the fight scene.
So this week we're doing the behind the scenes on our WW1 short film Finding Home. So if you haven't seen it already, there's a link in the description, check it out. But now we're gonna try and go through and show you how we made the film. The idea came around about 2 years ago. I've always wanted to kind of do a period piece, always been interested in action and war, and then when I saw Breaking Bad, I kind of really was fascinated by this idea of the deconstruction of a character through like stressful circumstances. So that paired with the idea of war, it's kind of the perfect combination, and then I teamed up with our writer Alex Bushnell, who kind of turned my idea into something hopefully more interesting and exciting. So the funding, the film cost about $4 grand. I funded the film myself. I was working and doing different freelance projects and used the money and put that into Finding Home. Most of the preparation for the project was writing the script, which took about 8 months from kind of the first draft to the draft we used. That was the bulk of the preparation. Then it was just kind of like booking everything, getting everything in place and getting the cast and crew together. We used 3 different locations for the shoot. We used a kind of period farmhouse type thing. We actually rented from Airbnb for £100. Then we used a trench location that we hired from a company called Khaki Devil, and they do trenches, uniforms, all of the kind of World War I stuff. And they actually provided the trench location for the Sainsbury's Christmas advert 2 years ago or a year ago. So we used their location, and then the final location of the 3 was actually just some woods quite close to my house. So the crew on the project was made up mostly of, all made up of people that I worked with before, people that I knew quite well. My cousin was the cinematographer, Ollie, who I'm sure you've seen in a number of documentaries and stuff, he was the second camera. I kind of produced it, I wrote with Alex Bushnell, who I've worked with before. So Dan, who did the behind the scenes, he's behind the camera right now. We've kind of worked some stuff together before. So all the crew was people that I've worked with before and I knew really well. And then I don't think I'd worked with any of the cast before. We had kind of some extras and some kind of people, small characters involved that I knew, but the bulk of the cast we auditioned. So we put up a casting call online. We had a lot of people who inquired. We then sent them the script, gave them some scenes to read, and we just held some auditions in West London. And we were really, really lucky, and I say this really genuinely, to have so many people that were really, really talented when they auditioned. I was absolutely blown away by the quality of those who auditioned, and so we just had a great choice. You know, we had a really good group of people to pick from, and we pulled out what I think is a really strong cast.
Invincible.
Fucking notebook! Always going to this stupid fucking workshop!
The uniforms we hired with the kind of same company that did the trench location. We went to their kind of main kind of office space or whatever on like the Wednesday or the Thursday night. We turned up, we collected a shit ton of uniforms and props and guns and everything, and then we brought them back here to the studio.
Just got all the costumes, we're gonna go and head back now.
Look at how filled the car is. I'm actually kind of proud of it.
Pyro that we had in the film was from a company called Dark Star Pyrotechnics, run by a friend of mine, Paul Birch. Very, very talented special effects guy. And I mean, you can see that opening sequence without him he did an amazing job on that. So the first day of filming was on the Friday. We went out and shot the dinner table scenes at this farmhouse location that we rented on Airbnb. It was a relatively simple day of filming. It was just kind of dialogue around a dinner table, but obviously it's quite complicated in terms of the different character motivations. So you've got like the young girl who looks up to Thomas, you've got like the auntie who's kind of quite protective of the young girl and quite suspicious of Thomas, you've got Thomas's wife who's, you know, very in love with him and cares for him and is worried about him, and then you've got Thomas that doesn't give a shit about her or whatever else. So you've got a lot of character motivations going on, and so it's very complicated to try and capture those moments and direct them at the different characters to show how the characters feel about each other. And because it was so contrasting, it was very complicated, and I feel that in the short space of time, it was very, very challenging to get all the character motivations across. But you know, I was kind of pleased with how it came out in the end. But yeah, so we did kind of a long day of filming, kind of from early in the morning to the kind of evening, and then we headed back here with all the girls on the film wrapped, and it was, and then the next morning it was time to shoot the trench location. So yeah, so day 2 was the trench day. We woke up, we kind of spent all night the night before preparing, kind of went to sleep at like 2 o'clock in the morning, woke up like a couple of hours later, drove to the film location, and it was freezing cold, like freezing. I remember arriving at this location and going to the toilet just after we arrived and sitting there in the toilet like, oh God, it was just so cold. But all of the footage from the trench location looked amazing. It was amazing to see everyone in their costumes. The pyro sequences were so much fun to film. And it was just a really, really good day of filming. I felt like everyone was really on board with the project, and the whole team kind of gelled really, really well, and we got it all done. It was a lot to film in one day, but because of the cost of the location, we had to. Filming day 3 was probably the most chilled out day, and in comparison to like output of work to like time, it was probably the lowest, just because we're all so exhausted from the 2 days before. But yeah, we woke up relatively early, not crazy early, got out to this the woods just to film 2 scenes, and they both went really well. The scene where they're all marching, the third scene in the whole film, when they're marching through the forest and they come across a French girl, the captain, or the officer or whatever, he was meant to be on a horse, but we got the horse to the location and it freaked out, and it was like in a really, really highly strung, all of a sudden was kind of going crazy, so sadly we had to cut the horse from the scene and he'd just have to walk on foot. But yeah, the kind of filming that day went really well. We got it all done, you know, before it got dark, and then we went for some drinks at the pub. You know, like any kind of, you know, film shoot, we made plenty of mistakes. One of my favourite things was the very, very last scene where there's the kind of inferred rape scene. There's a tap in the middle of that scene, like a really, really modern tap, and we kind of just didn't pick up on it on the day. But our visual effects artist, Thomas Thornton, from TJ VFX, he actually removed the tap. So pretty much everything we got fixed in post. I think the big mistake that I made that's kind of not rectifiable was I feel the film was too complicated. I was trying to write and trying to envisage, you know, with Bushnell, this feature film into a short film. And so it is very complex, and you kind of have to watch it a couple of times to really, I think, understand it. So we've entered into various different film festivals. We actually took it to Cannes in May, and myself and the writer went out to Cannes, and we had a really good time and got kind of a feel for the festival. I think the key with Finding Home was preparation. It was a very, very complicated project to execute, and I really, really enjoyed filming it. And I wish I put more in, but we put a huge amount of work into the pre-production of the film, into producing it and organising it and getting everything sorted. And I think that's what I learned from it, is that if you really, really set yourself up in pre-production, then production will go smoothly. But if you leave anything to chance with film, anything without a backup, it will go wrong.
Hang on. What are we doing?
One more time.
Oh, cool. Can you hear this? Huh? I was rolling.
I was also rolling. We can use it to sync the sound.
Backstage.
Alright, 3, 2, 1, action.